once again, Christian greetings to all our valued listeners and viewers throughout the whole world. This is our episode number 33 as the last final warning message just prior to the close of the vision. And to continue, I would like to read again the statement in the Great Controversy 323. It says, another kind of evidence that vitally affected my mind, he says, was the chronology of the scriptures. I found that predicted events which had been fulfilled in the past often occurred within a given time. The events limited by these times were all once only a matter of prophecy and were fulfilled in accordance with the predictions. So, our goal today is to establish the chronology of the future events from 2021 up to the visible coming of Jesus Christ, up to the beginning of the millennium. Now, since we already established the absolute fact that the commencement of the millennium is the year of Jubilee, according to 2SR 252. And such year of Jubilee, if you will begin on the ascension of Christ on 31 AD, 2031 is the 40th Jubilee, 2,000 years. 2,000 divided by 50 equals 40. So these 40 Jubilees typify the 40 days from resurrection to ascension, May 27, 31 AD. So 40 Jubilees typifying the 40 days. But the shepherds had called also the commencement of the millennium as the New Jerusalem, typifying the ark. Therefore, that must be the 120th Jubilee. So, typifying, so this is the 2031. From 3969 BC, that will be 6,000 years, or the 120th Jubilee, typifying the 120 years in the days of Noah, from 2464 BC to 2344 BC, 120 years. So that is the year of Jubilee in the year 2031. So, that is very plain. And how do we know that 2024 is the commencement of the premillennial kingdom, by which in Gregorian that is 2022? First, Ezekiel 39, that from the millennium to the time when God's people will be in God's kingdom, there would be 7 years. We're certain that 2024 is the deliverance of God's people. So the first clue is Ezekiel 39. 7 years, count backward. Number 2, this is sabbatical year. 2024 is a sabbatical year. And the deliverance of God's people must be in the sabbatical year. Number 3, this is pattern number 4. Typifying the deliverance of God's people from Egyptian bondage, also pattern number 4. So the same pattern. And the fourth one is Jeremiah 8:20. Because this April 14, 2024, in Gregorian, it is September 22, 2022. So, through this, at least 4 infallible proof, we can rest assured that the year 2024 is the year of deliverance of God's people, the commencement of the premillennial kingdom. So, what we'll be studying now is from September 22, 2022, Gregorian calendar, from this year 2021, what will happen within this period before the deliverance of God's people? What are the occurrences? Remember that promise in Revelation 1 verse 1 and Revelation 4 verse 1. Without any doubt, it is directed to the living saints. So I would like to read again the statement. It says, the statements which must shortly come to pass, Revelation 1 verse 1, and I will show thee things which must be hereafter, Revelation 4 verse 1. Go to say that the revelation is given with the one particular object in view of showing the things lying not behind, but ahead of John's time, with reference being made only incidentally to the past, in order to lay the necessary foundation upon which to build the future. So without any doubt, that's promise, I will show thee things which must be hereafter, which must shortly come to pass. Hereafter is pointing to the last generation of men, because according to 2 TG number 12, page 30, it says, moreover, the revelation is to be more fully understood during the judgment of the living. So, the divinely appointed time by which the entire book of Revelation will be completely unfolded is in the period of the judgment of the living, the last generation of men. So, brothers and sisters, our subject today is what will happen before September 22, 2022. I would like to repeat again, September 22, 2022 is the final deliverance of God's people. At that midnight, as stated in the vision in early writings 285, the 144,000 will be brought into the premillennial kingdom, will be brought into Mount Zion, the premillennial kingdom. So now we will be studying what are those events before the midnight deliverance of God's people. First, what is the specific feast by which God's people will be delivered? Passover, April 14. So that is April 14. So this deliverance of God's people on Bible calendar, April 14, 2024. In Gregorian, that is September 22, 2022. So that is the commencement of the Passover day. So to repeat again, we will now be studying the events that will occur between 2021 and up to September 22, 2022. I remember the statement in 1SR Packet Edition. Let's read 1SR Packet Edition on page 57. It says, explain the cause, the reason, the significance of former things. He demands, tell us, what do they mean? What are they for? Can you predict the future by the past, be it good or be it bad? Exhibit divine power if you can. In 2TG number 9, on page 14, it says, here is a challenge to all our adversaries. Let them tell you what shall happen hereafter, if they can, or let them tell the past, if they will. God challenges them, thus they may now know that they are as nothing, and those who choose to follow them, even they shall be an abomination to him. 2TG number 9, page 14. Plainly indicating that one of the signifying factor that you can easily determine the last and the final movement, the true people of God, because they knew what will happen hereafter. From this year 2021, hereafter, after 2021 onwards, God fulfill what He promised to His church. I will show these things which must shortly come to pass hereafter. Revelation 1 verse 1 and Revelation 4 verse 1. So let us now study closely. I remember in Isaiah 42 verse 9, it says, behold, the former things are come to pass, and new things do I declare. Before they spring forth, I tell you of them. Before they spring forth, I tell you of them. Isaiah 42 on verse 9. And I think it is even more directly pointing to our destiny. I remember in for Symbolic Code 10 to 12, page 3, for Symbolic Code 10 to 12, page 3. Now, our attention is called to the most important question. Could it be possible that the scriptures should contain such a complete prophecy of the church to 1844 and contain none at all for her since then? All must honestly agree that to leave the church out of prophecy at any time is illogical and also impossible. For God has never left His people in darkness, and He surely would not do so now at the most important time in the world's history. Then why does the church of today know so much about the prophecies of the past and so little of the prophecies concerning her own destiny? So, the most important is to study our own destiny. We as the last generation of men, the saints to be translated without seeing death. We need to know our own destiny. And I know it was revealed by God unto us. Remember, in Testimonies to Ministers 116, it says that soon the prophecies will be fulfilled in quick succession. Let me see if I could find that statement. So it says, soon the prophecies will be fulfilled in quick succession. And also in Testimonies to Ministers, page 116. And also the statement in Testimonies for the Church, volume 9, page 11, saying that the final movements will be rapid ones. So, that's the statement. The final movements will be rapid ones. I would like to read this reading, written by Alonzo Jones. So that when they do come, however fast, we are only glad because we know beforehand what it all means. So it says, so that when we do come, however fast, we are only glad because we know beforehand what it all means. So that is one of the advantage to know ahead of time what will happen. Because at the time when they will come, at the time when it will be fulfilled, however fast, we are only glad because we know it beforehand what it all means. And we don't want to get out in avalanche. In 1 TG number 47, it says here, in 1 TG 47, page 14, plainly, the burden of this chapter is concerning the antitypical returning to the homeland. Though terrible the trouble may seem, yet the outcome of it is to be the same as in the type. Right now, we may not appreciate this study as we ought to, but the time is soon coming in which we will dig as fast and as hard for it as we should to get out from under an avalanche. Those who have but little faith in the Word of God, though, the study will not do them much good. Now is the time to start cultivating the faith. We need to have them. So, brothers and sisters, we hope that none of us will be among those people who are under an avalanche and it is too late for them to cope up the situation because they were surprised. And one of the vision that was shown by God to the prophet in Testimonies For The Church, Volume 9, on page 28, it says, an impressive scene. In the visions of the night, a very impressive scene passed before me. I saw an immense ball of fire fall among some beautiful mansions, causing their instant destruction. I heard someone say, we knew that the judgments of God were coming upon the earth, but we did not know that they would come so soon. Others with agonized voices said, you knew. Why then did you not tell us? We did not know. On every side, I heard similar words of reproach spoken. So this vision, we can't easily discern that the great mistakes of these people is that they did not know the divinely appointed time when God's judgment will come upon the world. Because their testimony says, we knew that there is judgments of God, but the only thing we did not know is that we were surprised. We did not know that it will come so soon, indicating that they have no information at all. The only information, for example, they knew that there is slaughtering, but they did not know when, and that is the mistake. One of the message in tract number 1, page 29 and 30, it says here, as the words which Ezekiel was to speak to his people were found in the book which he ate, the book can be none other than the Bible, from which comes the message culminating in joy, mourning, and woe. And lo, a roll of a book was therein, and he spread it before me. And it was written within and without, and there was written therein lamentations and mourning and woe. Ezekiel 2 verse 9 and 10. Thy right in besieging the slaughter in Ezekiel 9. And the was pronounced in the master's parables, Lord of that servant shall come in a day when he looketh not for him, and in an hour that he is not aware of, and shall cut him asunder, and appoint him his portion with the hypocrites. There shall be weeping and gnashing of teeth. Then said the king to the servants, bind him hand and foot, and take him away, and cast him into outer darkness. There shall be weeping and gnashing of teeth. Matthew 24, verse 50, 51, and Matthew 22, verse 13. So the focal point of the vision is the slaughter in Ezekiel 9. It says, thy right in besieging the slaughter in Ezekiel 9, by which woe to them, by which they were unaware, meaning they did not know when would be the day of slaughter. And that is the principal reason why God raised up antitypical Elijah the Tishbite to announce the day of slaughter. Now here in tract number 8, page 61, it says, therefore the work of Elijah particularly typifies the day of slaughter in the church. So the work of Elijah is more pertaining to the day of slaughter. And the voice of inspiration says, no one can proclaim that day except Elijah. So it says here on the General Conference special on page 12, all may for a surety know both the day and the Elijah, as he proclaims it. Because to our surprise, he will point out that every Bible prophet describes the day and also tells what the Lord would have us do while it is approaching. And subsequently, while we are going through it, all will see that no one but Elijah can proclaim the day. Only Elijah can announce the day, can proclaim the day. And what is that day? The day of slaughter. So, we need now to study closely, brothers and sisters, this subject, the day of slaughter, by which that is one of the principal reasons why God raised up antitypical Elijah the Tishbite so that God's people could be able to escape the day of slaughter. Now, the shepherd's rod made itself plain that concerning the day of slaughter, it was divided only into two. The slaughtering before the close of provision and the slaughtering after the close of provision. So, let us read again the statement here in the Old Symbolic Code. In 3 Symbolic Code, number 1, page 8, therefore, as there are two separations, there is a double fulfillment of Ezekiel's slaughter, one in the church before the close of provision, and the other in the worldly churches after the close of provision, when everyone has made his decision. So, there are only two slaughtering. The first slaughtering is the slaughtering before the close of provision, and the second slaughtering is after the close of provision. Now, let us read the same statement in 3 Symbolic Code 8 to 10, page 9. 3 Symbolic Code 8 to 10, page 9. It says, what like and how far? Question number 178. What will the slaughter in the churches be like? Will it involve the outside world? Answer. The slaughter of Ezekiel 9 is the antitype of the Passover in Egypt, and therefore it will be like it. Read Exodus chapter 12. In the antitype, the slaughter falls first in the church, Testimonies for the Church, volume 5, page 211, and later in the world, the Great Controversy, page 656. Hence, it is in two sections, one before the final close of provision and one after. So, the shepherd's rod called the word final close of provision. So let us now categorize or make or differentiate the slaughtering before the close of provision and the slaughtering after the close of provision. The slaughtering before the close of provision will take place only in antitypical Egypt. But the slaughtering after the close of provision, it will be in the whole world, throughout the whole world. So, I would like to make a simple illustration. So, for example, so this is the final close of provision. Final close of provision. So, the slaughtering here is after the final close of provision, and the slaughtering before the final close of provision. The first difference, this slaughtering will be only on antitypical Egypt. But this slaughtering is throughout the whole world. So that is the difference, the first difference. Second, in this slaughtering, only the firstborn sons will be slaughtered. Only the firstborn sons. In this slaughtering, all wicked, whether you are firstborn or not, little children or men, all wicked Sabbath keepers will be slaughtered in this slaughtering. And the third difference is that this slaughtering is only 1 hour from midnight. So the entire, for example, in 1 a.m., this slaughtering is already finished. Whereas this slaughtering is 7 days. So those are the differences between the two slaughtering. There are 3 differences in the 3 slaughtering. And of course, we need to establish the very first slaughtering by which only the firstborn sons were in danger. Now let us read 1 SR Packet Edition on page 55, page 56. It says, when will this come to pass? 1 SR Packet Edition, page 55 and page 56. When will this come to pass? The type unquestionably reveals the time through the fact that only the firstborn were then in danger. So in this slaughtering, only the firstborn sons that were in danger. But in the slaughtering, after the final close of provision, all human beings, Sabbath keepers, who failed to receive the seal of the living God, all of them will be completely destroyed. Now, I would like to read the Old Symbolic Code. 1 Symbolic Code number 14 on page 6. So, let's read 1 Symbolic Code number 14, page 6. As Amos says, the habitations of the shepherds shall mourn. It is obvious that Amos' prophecy is yet future. For the word habitations, places, is in the plural form, which cannot be applied to one shepherd's habitation, denomination, but to all that be in existence at that time. So do not forget the statement, to all. The term shepherds means, as understood, the same as the ancient men which were before the house, the ministers. Testimonies for the Church, volume 5, page 211. Note that the shepherds are not themselves to mourn, but their habitations, their houses, that is the membership of their churches, which fact reveals that it will be thus at the time when the sleeping multitudes in the churches awake from their spiritual insensibility and find that the shepherds whom they have implicitly trusted for their salvation had deceived all those who followed them. Now let us study closely this predicted event. We know that this is Amos chapter 1 verse 2. What is Amos chapter 1 verse 2? So I would like to read first 2TG number 41. 2TG number 41 on page 7. 2TG 41 page 7. Moreover, Amos by the eye of inspiration looked down, 2TG 41 page 7. Moreover, Amos by the eye of inspiration looked down through the centuries deep into the Christian era and declared, Amos 1 verse 2, the Lord will roar from Zion, and utter his voice from Jerusalem, and the habitations of the shepherds shall mourn, and the top of Carmel shall wither. Then it says, this scripture, you see, reflects the tragedy which took place on the top of Carmel in the days of Elijah. Here we are given the hint that there is to be another showdown between the prophet of God and the prophets of Baal. The prophets of Baal in our day even boast that they are not inspired, that what they teach and preach is what they themselves discovered by deep study and research. They even sneer at those who claim to be inspired of the Lord. Now, brothers and sisters, it says the showdown mentioned here is between the prophets of Baal and the prophet of God. So the prophets of Baal is in plural, but the prophet of God is singular. Brethren, this prophecy is still unfulfilled, and Betihotep was already lying unconscious in his grave. Therefore, the prophet of God mentioned here cannot be Betihotep. And the mere fact that it is inscribed in singular form, it must be a singular prophet, the prophet of God. But in parity of reasoning, it's easy to discern that this prophet must be antitypical Elijah the Tishbite, because the type is Elijah the Tishbite. Then the antitype must be antitypical Elijah the Tishbite. Remember, brethren, in the General Conference Special, I would like to read General Conference Special on page 30, page 31. It says, moreover, we all know that the work of typical Elijah was to do away with the prophets and priests who serve Baal instead of God, those who lead ancient Israel into the greatest fallacy and fury of the day. Accordingly, the antitypical Elijah's work, being in the sphere and power of typical Elijah, must therefore be similar to typical. Elijah's working, restoring truth and righteousness, bringing judgment upon the false prophets and teachers in the antitypical day, which in itself is the separating of the chaff from the wheat, the work of the judgment for the living. Now, if you will say that antitypical Elijah that is by is Betihotep, Betihotep was already dead, but the prophets of Baal and the priests of Baal were still alive. It seems that it is the prophet of God that had been defeated. But, brothers and sisters, there are plenty of proofs to prove that Betihotep is not antitypical Elijah the Tishbite. Because the reason that God raised up antitypical Elijah the Tishbite is to get rid of all the prophets and priests of Baal. Now, if it is Betihotep, then God failed to materialize the reason why he raised up antitypical Elijah the Tishbite. God raised up Betihotep to 1930 to 1955 and then died, and the prophets of Baal and the priests of Baal are still alive, fooling God's people. Who are they? They are those who say that they were not inspired. To TG 41 page 7. And it is an eye-opener to all Shepherd's Rod believers saying that they were not inspired and they were teaching prophecy. They say that we teach prophecy by our deep study and research, not knowing that that is the description of the prophets of Baal. Because no one can teach the prophecy except by the Spirit of Christ. If you will teach prophecy without the Spirit of Christ, then inevitably you will fall into the forbidden practice of private interpretation. This portion is very critical. But the same with the situation of the Seventh-day Adventist Church, I would like to read this reading. And 2SR 218, it says, there would be no necessity for that class to fall by the figure of the 5 men with the slaughter weapons. It is the reception or rejection of the message that will fix the destiny of the two classes. I would like to read again. There would be no necessity for that class to fall by the figure of the 5 men with the slaughter weapons. It is the reception or rejection of the message that will fix the destiny of the two classes. Brethren, the most important message is that the statement in Volume 1, 190 saying, "Dear friends, do not deceive your own condition, because we cannot deceive God." And the same with the statement in the General Conference Special on pages 4 and 5. The serious issue to which these questions give rise demands that we cease fooling ourselves or letting others make fools of us. Let us cease fooling ourselves or letting others make fools of us. Now, I would like to read this reading again in one Symbolic Code number 14, page 6. What is the particular object in view in Amos 1, verse 2? Mount Carmel. Read again and again Amos 1, verse 2. The focal point is Mount Carmel. Whether you will agree or disagree, the truth of the matter is that only the billion brothers and sisters can be addressed to such mount, which is called Mount Carmel. The Seventh-day Adventist Church has no knowledge concerning Mount Carmel, and they never called their headquarters as Mount Carmel. Now, brethren, very important for us to understand who are they, the shepherds mentioned here. Because the shepherd's rod says in one Symbolic Code number 14, page 6, that it must be applied to all that be in existence at that time. So, unto whom the word all is applied, by which it is applied to all. Now, there is a very important question. Why is it that it is the membership that will mourn rather than the shepherds? So that is a very important question, that in this event, why is it that it is only the habitations which pointing to all the membership that will mourn and not the shepherds? Now, let us read first. Let me see if I can find that statement. In Symbolic Code saying, the gates shall lament and mourn. Let's read in Symbolic Code. That predicted event, I think that is in Isaiah chapter 3. Let us read from Symbolic Code. Number 6 and 7 on page 13. Reading in Isaiah 3, verse 25 and verse 26. So let us read. It says, "Thy men shall fall by the sword, and thy mighty in the war." Isaiah 3, verse 25. "Thy men shall fall by the sword, and thy mighty in the war." This verse places the time when the men of Zion shall fall by the sword, and the mighty in the war. Through Nahum, we learn that it is the Assyrian war. So it is in the time when World War II will be resumed, because the war mentioned in the book of Nahum is World War II. It says, through Nahum, we learn that it is the Assyrian war that is being fought in the day these things take place. So, Isaiah 3 verse 25 will be fulfilled, brothers and sisters, during the time when World War II will be resumed. Now, before reading this one, continuing, I would like to connect first 1TG number 3 on page 15. It says, let's read the statement. 1TG 3:15. Here we are told that at the time the war is fought, someone is to be publishing inspired revelations of newly revealed truth, the truth of the judgment of the living, the which is to forever separate the wheat from the tares. Matthew 13 verse 30, the good fish from the bad. Matthew 13, 47, 48, the sheep from the goats. Matthew 25, 32, and the wise virgins from the foolish ones. Matthew 25 verse 12. They shall no more pass through the church, declares the scriptures. They are utterly cut off. Thus urging Judah the church to keep this antitypical atonement feast and to perform her vows to God so as to be found worthy of escaping the judgments of God. Hence God's plea to his church is now ringing throughout the land, saying, "Awake, awake, put on the strength of Zion, put on the beautiful garments of Jerusalem, the holy city, for henceforth there shall no more come unto thee the uncircumcised and the unclean." Isaiah 52 verse 1. And it was especially mentioned the Day of Atonement, to keep this antitypical atonement feast. And since in our study, that antitypical atonement feast is none other than this coming Day of Atonement on March 22, 2022. Also, concerning the Passover in September, Gregorian calendar, but in Bible that is April 14. Now, brothers and sisters, since through the sanctuary doctrine, we have been able to locate the last and the final Day of Atonement that will be on March 22, 2022, which is the blotting out of sins of the 144,000 living saints. Without any doubt, World War II will be resumed prior to March 22, 2022. So, the greatest possibility that World War II will be resumed this year, the year 2021. Now, let's go back again to the reading. In Symbolic Code number 6 and 7, page 13. Verse 26, it says, "And her gates shall lament and mourn, and she being desolate shall sit upon the ground." Since gates are not able to lament and mourn, they must represent people, those who let others come in and go out. Therefore, they must represent watchmen, ministers. This verse says they shall lament and mourn. Now, if we will read 1TG number 6, and I think page 32, 1TG number 6, page 32, it says, "And her gate shall lament and mourn, and she being desolate shall sit upon the ground." So it says the very thing that sifts out the unconverted, because the standard of her profession is cast to the winds, her gates of gathering places shall lament and mourn. Desolate shall sit on the ground, not on a throne. Why suffer such a loss? But the thing that I would like to emphasize is that B.T. Hotep addressed this one to the Seventh-day Adventist leadership. The gates shall lament and mourn. And the gates represent the leadership. So, why is it that they will lament and mourn? The General Conference. I would like to say the General Conference of the Seventh-day Adventist Church, because they are represented by Zion. Here in 1TG number 6. 1TG number 6 on page 25, it says, "The title Judah, Kingdom of Judah," of course, takes in the nation as a whole. Applying this title to the church in our time, it means the denomination as a whole. The people that are to make up the antitypical kingdom of Judah. The title Zion, the ancient palace grounds, personified as in this chapter, and away from the promised land, means the General Conference, the headquarters of the denomination. And in White House Recruiter, page 53, it says, "And it shall come to pass that he that is left in Zion at headquarters." So Zion represents headquarters, because that is the palace grounds. So Zion represents headquarters, which is represented by the palace grounds. But look at the description given in Isaiah 3, verse 26, verse 25 and 26, as well as 27. It is the people in Zion that shall lament and mourn. So the people in the headquarters, they will be the one to lament and mourn. Why? Because all under leadership, represented by firstborn sons. So the General Conference, Seventh-day Adventist Church, the entire constituent of the General Conference must be represented by Pharaoh. Now, I would like to read here in 1SR. Here in 1SR on page, B.T. Hotep says that antitypical Pharaoh represent the leadership of the General Conference of the Seventh-day Adventist Church. Here on 1SR page 77, "Another Pharaoh arose. Now there arose up a new king over Egypt, which knew not Joseph." Exodus 1 verse 8. If the first Pharaoh who exalted Joseph Christ represented the leadership in the days of the apostles, then this new Pharaoh must represent the leadership of this present movement at the time this subject became known. Note, this new Pharaoh knew not Joseph, meaning Christ. The meaning is that the leadership of this organization has left following their master, Christ. The Quotations, Volume 5, page 170. That statement, I think, is enough to understand that Pharaoh, in that instance, represent the Seventh-day Adventist General Conference leadership. And all under leadership, represented by the firstborn sons, will be destroyed on that night, on that antitypical Passover, by which we already read, right, in one of our packet edition, page 55 and page 56, that only the firstborn sons were in danger at that time. But Amos 1 verse 2 is opposite. It is not the leadership that will lament and mourn, but it is the habitations. It is the membership of that churches, plainly indicating that Amos 1 verse 2 cannot be applied to the Seventh-day Adventist Church, because the focal point is Mount Carmel, and that term Mount Carmel must be applied only to the Davidian. So it must be applied to all headquarters of the Davidian. Now, ponder deeply, brothers and sisters, because Bible prophecy cannot be mistaken. Now, I would like to read again, because the most important is to understand who are they, the 144,000 living saints. If the admonition is that strive with all your power to be among the 144,000, 7 BC, 970, then to be a part of that special company, that 144,000 living saints, we need to study the characteristics of the 144,000 living saints. Look at the characteristics. First, 1 SR 222. It says here, though such great apostasy and blasphemy has gripped the world, God's church, 144,000 in number, is scattered throughout the length and breadth of the earth, without a shepherd, have not bowed a knee to Baal. What is the description of the 144,000? Is scattered throughout the length and breadth of the earth without a shepherd. So, the entire 144,000, they were not shepherd. What is shepherd? Brothers and sisters, it is very important to understand what does the representation of the shepherd. Shepherd represent ministry. So, whether under organization or whether voluntarily, brothers and sisters, in this study, there is no such member of the 144,000 by which, brothers and sisters, I think, if you need to study closely, that they themselves were receiving tithes and offerings because they were not shepherds and they did not bow their knee to Baal. So, the first description of the 144,000 is that they never supported the prophets of Baal. They never supported the priests of Baal because they did not bow their knee. Now, let us study closely these people. These people are, of course, they are not the living saints. Let us read again the statement in 1 Symbolic Code number 14, page 6. Note that the shepherds are not themselves to mourn, but their habitations, their houses, that is the membership of their churches, which fact reveals that it will be thus at the time when the sleeping multitudes in the churches awake from their spiritual insensibility and find that the shepherds whom they have implicitly trusted for their salvation had deceived all those who follow them. Now, apology, and forgive me if it is not appropriate, but I think that is the real thing in this reading, that all these shepherds are deceivers because it says, had deceived all those who follow them. So we need to study closely now. Who are these shepherds? No, it cannot be applied to only one shepherd habitation, but to all that be in existence at that time. To all brothers and sisters that will be in existence at that time. Why is it that the shepherds themselves will not be the one to mourn, but rather their membership of their churches? And at the time when they lament and mourn, no, it is already too late. It is already too late. Now, I would like to read the next paragraph. It says, the prophet Jeremiah, in the following words, explains that this wailing by those who are deceived will be at the close of provision. For they shall say, the harvest is past, the summer is ended, and we are not saved. Jeremiah 8 verse 20. You see, Jeremiah 8:20 is very important prophecy. When these people will lament and mourn, it says, after the close of provision, after the summer is ended. Then it says, let us continue. That is after the harvest. You see, very plain. That is after the harvest, the time in which they could have been saved. So the period of time by which they will be saved is in the period of harvest, but it's easy to discern that period of the harvest because that is the entire period of the summer. When does the summer begin? June 21 to September 22. So, since we already proved to you that this year is the very first fulfillment of Jeremiah 8:20, June 21, 2021 to September 22, 2021. So, let us put that, remark that event. When would be the summer in the year 2021? When would be the entire period of the summer in the year 2021? The absolute answer must be from June 21, 2021 up to September 22, 2021. So that is the entire period of the summer. So in that period of time, that is the entire period of the harvest. On September 23, 2021, that is the time by which the summer is ended and the harvest is past. Now, I would like to read again the statement here. It says, the prophet Jeremiah, in the following words, explained that this wailing by those who are thus deceived will be at the close of provision. And then it says, for they shall say, the harvest is past, the summer is ended, and we are not saved. Jeremiah 8 verse 20. That is, after the harvest, the time in which they could have been saved, they will realize that provisionary time has closed. So they will realize, then the habitations of the shepherds shall mourn, and the top of Carmel shall wither. What is the one that will wither? Not the Carmel. It is not Carmel that will wither, but rather the top of Carmel. Brothers and sisters, this reading is closely connected to Isaiah 2, that God will establish His mountain in the top of the mountains. So the word top, brothers and sisters, meaning this Carmel is the top of all the Carmels. It says, and the top of Carmel shall wither. Who will wither? Is it just Carmel? No, it is the top. The top of what? The top of Carmel. So if you are only sincere and honest, you can easily discern this predicted in Amos 1 verse 2. That among the Bidia today, there must be a group of people by which they have plenty of present truths. Now, I would like to read the statement. Then the habitations of the shepherds shall mourn. Who will mourn? The habitations of the shepherds. Now, analyze closely. What is the statement of the shepherds? Well, let us analyze. Who will mourn? The habitations of the shepherds. So, please copy. Who are they? So, who are they, the habitations of the shepherds? Answer, the membership. And to whom such habitations apply? It says, to all. To all habitations. What is habitations? Headquarters. All headquarters. It's easy, very easy to understand. Now, all headquarters have shepherds. But according to the prophecy, all who followed these shepherds have deceived all. And this sleeping multitude, they will be awakened to the fact that they have been deceived. But the 144,000 is scattered throughout the whole world without a shepherds. But these people who will mourn, they were under these shepherds, because it says, they will found out that the shepherds whom they implicitly trusted for their salvation had deceived them. All who followed them, who are they that shall lament and mourn? Those who trusted shepherds. Why is that they trust that shepherds? Because they are under that habitation. What is habitation? Headquarters. Since they are under that habitation, that headquarters, brothers and sisters, at the time that they awaken, it is too late. Now, what happenstance that caused them to be awakened? That is very important. What happenstance that caused them to be awakened? So let us now gradually decipher that predicted event in Amos chapter 1, verse 2. So I would like to repeat again. What the Bible teaches as interpreted by the shepherd's rod concerning Amos 1 verse 2. First, you should not confine in one symbolic code 14.6, but you need to connect to 2TG 41.7. What is the explanation given in 2TG 41.7? Second showdown. Second showdown of what? Between the prophets and priests of Baal, between the prophet of God. So the prophets and priests of Baal, the showdown is between the prophet of God and the prophets of Baal. Who is he, the prophet of God? Without any doubt, he must be antitypical Elijah the Tishbite. Now, ponder deeply. Type and antitype should exactly fit and perfectly mix. During the showdown in the type, thus Elijah the Tishbite at that time has headquarters. Please try to make a research, because the written word will explain to you everything. So, since type and antitype, I would like to read 9 Symbolic Code 1 to 12, page 20. 9 Symbolic Code 1 to 12, on page 20, it says, I would like to read a statement. Against this dark background of spiritual decline and consumption, wretchedness, misery, poverty, blindness, and nakedness, an evident and being spewed out, stands out in a bold relief, the sternly chiseled work of Mount Carmel center. As did the flaming summit of ancient Carmel, amid the idolatry and decadence of apostate Israel. Again, type meets antitype. To the Israel of God's today, says the angel, ye have done worse than they. Now, the statement, again, type meets antitype. Now, we need to look at to the type so that we could understand the antitype. Now, let us read Prophets and Kings. So, I would like to read to you Prophets and Kings. So, let us read Prophets and Kings on page, let us read the statement. Prophets and Kings, I would like to go directly to page 123. The prophet's words went into immediate effect. Those who were at first inclined to scoff at the thought of calamity soon had occasion for serious reflection. For after a few months, the earth, unrefreshed by dew or rain, became dry and vegetation withered. As time passed, streams that had never been known to fail began to decrease, and brooks began to dry up. You see, brothers and sisters, that is the ancient Mount Carmel. Now, here in 124, it says, "A year passes, and yet there is no rain. The earth is parched as if with fire. The scorching heat of the sun destroys what little vegetation has survived. Streams dry up, and lowing herds and bleating flocks wander hither and thither in distress. Once flourishing fields have become like burning desert sands and desolate waste. The groves dedicated to idol worship are leafless. The forest trees, gaunt skeletons of nature, afford no shade. The air is dry and suffocating. Dust storms blind the eyes and merely stop the breath. Once prosperous cities and villages have become places of mourning. Hunger and thirst are tailing upon men and beasts with fearful mortality. Famine with all its horrors comes closer and still closer." Now, brothers and sisters, that's what happened in ancient Mount Carmel. When does the top of Carmel occurred? That is in the time of the Showdown. Now, let us read here in Prophets and Kings 144. Prophets and Kings, page 144. It says, "Before the drought, Mount Carmel had been a place of beauty. Its streams fed from never-failing springs, and its fertile slopes covered with fair flowers and flourishing groves. But now its beauty languished under a withering curse. The altars erected to the worship of Baal and Ashtoreth stood now in leafless groves. On the summit of one of the highest ridges, in sharp contrast with this, was the broken down altar of Jehovah." So where is the place by which Elijah established the altar of God? In the top of Carmel, but in the valley, in the foot of Carmel. What had been established? It says the altars of Baal and Ashtoreth. So in the type, there are many altars of Baal and Ashtoreth, but God commanded Elijah to establish the altar of God in the top of Carmel. So that is very plain in the historical event. Let us distinctly separate the altar of worship of the prophets and priests of Baal, which is below the top of Carmel, and the top of Carmel by which the altar of Jehovah had been established by ancient Elijah. That is right. And that event is typological. That historical event, brothers and sisters, is typological. So, let us go back again to our subject, because it was grossly misconstrued by many Shepherd's Rod believers today. Now, let us read the statement here in 1 Symbolic Code, number 14, page 6. It says, "Hence, before that time, the top of Carmel must have been green with much pasture." What is green pasture? Present truth. Otherwise, there would be nothing to weather. That is, though Carmel has now plenty of pasture, present truth. But that is pointing what Carmel? The top of Carmel. The same with the illustration in Isaiah chapter 2. That the Lord will establish His mountain above all the mountains. Brothers and sisters, according to the Bible. And we know that the mountain represents God's denomination. Let me see if I could find that statement. The mountain represents God's denomination, according to the Shepherd's Rod. I think in 1SR, saying that 1SR, mountain represents God's denomination. So we can also use that 2SR, page 117. So, mountain represents God's denomination. So, God's denomination will be established in the top of all the mountains. Holy mountain, I think 1SR 171. I would like to read 1SR page 171. It says, His holy mountain means His denomination. So it says, His holy mountain means His denomination. Now, brothers and sisters, there is one thing which is not familiar with the video. Mount Moriah and Mount Zion. Micah chapter 4. Let me read to you. It says here, and 1SR 173. But in the last days it shall come to pass that the mountain of the house of the Lord shall be established in the top of the mountains. And we know that in this comparison, pointing to anciently, there is only one Mount Carmel. But today, there are many Mount Carmels. pointing to the headquarters of the Davidians. But in the last days it shall come to pass that the mountain of the house of the Lord shall be established in the top of the mountains, and it shall be exalted above the hills, and people shall flow unto it. Micah 4 verse 1. The scripture is unmistakably clear that it was intended for the last days, for it reads, but in the last days it shall come to pass. It is also positive that this scripture will be fulfilled, for it says it shall come to pass. It is an accepted fact that nearly all Bible students agree that the mountain spoken of in this chapter is a symbol of God's church denomination, of which the temple built on Mount Moriah was a type. Now, what denomination typified by the temple that was built on Mount Moriah? Who established that temple in Mount Moriah? The son of David, Solomon. And who is he, the antitypical son of David? Jesus Christ, the branch. He shall build the temple of the Lord. Where? In antitypical Mount Moriah. So according to this prophecy, we will discuss that on the next episode concerning the antitypical temple that will be established in Mount Moriah by Jesus Christ. The prophecy recorded in Zechariah 6 verse 12 and 13. And the only one that had been given the information is antitypical Joshua. It says here in 1TG number 8 on page 27. 1TG number 8 page 27 it says, and speaking unto him, saying, thus speaketh the Lord of hosts, saying, behold the man whose name is the branch, and he shall grow up out of his place, and he shall build the temple of the Lord. Then it says, Joshua is well instructed that the burden and the ingenuity for building this spiritual temple belongs to him whose name is the branch. And who is he whose name is the branch? We know that he is none other than Jesus Christ, the son of David. Now let us read in 1TG number 8, page 24. Who is to bring this revival and reformation, this great change? The branch. And according to Isaiah 11, verse 1 to 5, the branch is the Lord, the son of David. 1TG number 8, page 24. Now, let us go back again to our subject on 1 Symbolic Code number 14, page 6. Brethren, it is very important to acquaint ourselves with the truth because the truth will stand forever. Truth will remain truth as it is. Now, we need to study closely 1 Symbolic Code 14, page 6. What is the truth in this prophetic event? Now, I would like to read again the statement here. It says, hence before that time, the top of Carmel. So it is the top of Carmel. What is Carmel? Mountain. Pointing to the mountain. What is mountain? Denomination. So, meaning, it is the denomination of God established in the top of Carmel. Who established that altar? What is the representation of altar? Reformation. Who established that altar anciently? Brothers and sisters, it is easy to understand. Now, for example, this is the literal mountain, Mount Carmel. Here, there are many altars of the prophets of Baal, priests of Baal, according to the Bible and for prophecy. But when God raised up Elijah the Tishbite, God commanded Elijah to establish the altar of Jehovah in the top of the mountain. No, it is just not a mere happenstance. It is purposive design to understand Amos 1 verse 2. That among the Bidya, brothers and sisters, there is only one movement recognized by God as His. And that is the movement by which God commanded antitypical Elijah the Tishbite. And it cannot be applied in the days of Bethlehem because there is only one denomination called Mount Carmel. So, the prophecy must be pointing after Bethlehem died, what happened, brothers and sisters, to those with that organization. It was defeated by the devil and all of them became the altars of Baal. But there is a divinely appointed time when God raised antitypical Elijah the Tishbite. God commanded the prophet to establish that altar in the top of Carmel. What does it mean? This denomination have the complete information of the plan of redemption. Plenty of present truths. Plenty of green pasture. So, the divine earmark that you can discern this movement which is established by antitypical Elijah the Tishbite is through the present truth because all the present truths was bestowed by God into this movement. Plenty of green pastures, the top of Carmel. and this plenty of green pastures, it will wither. Meaning, brothers and sisters, it will no longer be, it could no longer save anybody after probation closes. When would be probation close? Jeremiah 8:20. What is Jeremiah 8:20? At the time when the summer is ended. Very plain in that reading. Jeremiah 8 verse 20. Now let us read again the statement here. One Symbolic Code number 14, page 6. In reality, this is a very important prophecy, but it was grossly misconstrued by many shepherd's rod believers. Now, I would like to read again. The prophet Jeremiah, in the following words, explained that this wailing by those who are deceived will be at the close of provision. Who deceived them? All the shepherds. Now, ponder deeply, brothers and sisters. Who will be the one to wail, to lament and mourn? All of them, which is under the umbrella of this habitation. What is habitation? Headquarters. Is it applied only to one? What is the statement? To all. Does the Seventh-day Adventist Church is a part of this prophecy? No. Because the Seventh-day Adventist leadership has a different setting of prophecy. Isaiah 3, verse 25 and 26. It is those in the headquarters that shall lament and mourn. Opposite in the description here. Who will lament and mourn? The membership. But in the Seventh-day Adventist Church, who will lament and mourn? It is the leadership. The shepherds in the headquarters. So, let us distinctly separate the situation of the Seventh-day Adventist Church and the situation of these shepherds. Who are these shepherds? The shepherds that established in Mount Carmel. Who are they? Who are that shepherds? The prophets and priests of Baal. There are many altars established in Mount Carmel anciently. But when God raised up Elijah the Tishbite, ancient Elijah the Tishbite, God commanded the prophet, establish my altar in the top of Carmel, in the peak of the mountain. So that event is typological to point out Amos 1 verse 2 that before God raised up antitypical Elijah the Tishbite, all the altars in Mount Carmel is not of God. It is of Baal. Now, tell me, can you prove in the Bible that before Elijah established altar in the top of Carmel, there is an altar of Jehovah in Mount Carmel that recognized by Jehovah as his? Historically, it says all the altars of Jehovah had been destroyed, broken, and it was replaced by the altars of Baal. That is the historical event. Now, where is now the typological event in the antitypical fulfillment? For sure, it cannot be in the days of B.T. Hopper because there is only one denomination. There is only one Mount Carmel. There is only one altar, and that is led by God-inspired servant, B.T. Hopper, and it is recognized by God as he is. But it was predicted beforehand that when the prophet died, that's what happens, my dear brothers and sisters. We are now coming face to face the fulfillment of Amos 1 verse 2. And probably this prophecy will be fulfilled this year, 2021, brothers and sisters. Although, as I've said, there are only two prominent Passover, 2021 and 2022. And we already explained that 100% September 22, 2022, there is a slaughtering. Although, at this time, we are not so certain whether that slaughtering is the first or that slaughtering is the second. We cannot say 100%. The only thing that we could say, 100%, September 22, 2022, there is a slaughtering at midnight. The only thing that we are not as yet 100% certain, but I would like to say 99%, not yet 100%. If that slaughtering is the first or the second, because there are only two slaughtering, before the close of provision and after the close of provision. But at this time, we can say 99% that slaughtering in September 22, 2022 is the last and the final slaughtering. 99%. So we will leave just 1%. But 100% September 22, 2022, there is a slaughtering. If it is not the last, it must be the first. But at this time, we can say 99% that is the last, that is the second slaughtering. But if not, 100% we can declare to you that that is that September 22, 2022, there is a slaughtering. So in this study, brothers and sisters, we will now be studying what will happen, the situation today among the video. And as I've said, brothers and sisters, God is a God of love. God is a God of mercy, full of righteousness. And He has no desire to destroy anybody. Look at what happened to Nineveh when all of them accepted the message of Jonah. Did God destroy Nineveh? No. Because He is more on saving rather than destroying. And 100% I do fully believe. Thus, there is no necessity for any division will lose out. If all the division will only accept and listen to the message, all of us as individuals repent and humble ourselves before God and ask for forgiveness, 100%, not even one among the division will lose out. Because it is only by the reception, TSR 280, it is by the reception and rejection of the message that will fix the destiny, that fix our destiny. So, brothers and sisters, we will continue on our next episode, and I would like to read this reading in 2TG number 24. 2TG number 24 on page 24. Truly, the self-appointed prophets in Israel of today are more in number than were the prophets in Elijah's day. Here is a fact which only deaf and blind persons would try to deny. Who are they, the prophets of Baal? No, they are not those who claim to be inspired. They are those who do not claim of being inspired. 2TG 41:7. Although, BTOTF says in tract number 6, page 71, says that the irony of their position. They do not claim that they were inspired by God, but in spite of that fact, they were preaching the prophecy by which it is prohibited. No one can teach the prophecy, brothers and sisters. Only those that under inspiration of the Spirit of Christ, because there is no private interpretation. So that is the irony of their position, according to tract number 6, page 71. And you can quote that entire paragraph in tract number 6, page 70. And here it says, remember that in 2TG 41, page 7, saying, the prophets of Baal in our day even boast, meaning they were so proud to say that, no, we are not inspired. And they say that what we teach and preach is what we discovered by deep study and research. That is a blasphemy. No one can discover prophecy by deep study and research. Brothers and sisters, then you are breaking the divine code. The other says in 2TG 44, page 30 and 31, no matter how simple it might be, it cannot be discovered by human wisdom. And that is a blasphemy. To say that you discovered that by deep study and research, only through by the Spirit of Christ. It says here in 2TG 24:24, truly the self-appointed prophets in Israel of today. How many prophets and priests of Baal in the days of Elijah? 850. But BTOTF says the prophets of Baal and the priests of Baal in our day are more in number. It must be more than 850. So it cannot be applied to the people who claim to be inspired. In the United States of America, there are some who claim that they were inspired by God, but I think their number will not reach even number 10. How could it say that the prophets of Baal in our day is more in number than in the days of Elijah? While in the days of Elijah, there are 850 because they are the leaders of these different headquarters by which they were the prophets of Baal. They do not claim that they were inspired. And they say that what they teach is what they themselves discovered by deep study and research. 2TG 41, page 7. And it says, here is a fact which only deaf and blind persons would try to deny. No, I am not taking pleasure in unveiling this truth. I do it only because I must. God wants His people to have the truth, and so I have no alternative. But that is the reality, brothers and sisters. I am not taking pleasure in unveiling this truth. But God wants His people. God wants the 144,000 to know the situation. And I do fully believe that the 144,000, all of them will be awakened to this absolute fact. And all of them will withdraw themselves from any organizations. They will withdraw themselves any umbrella of these habitations. And throughout the whole world, they were scattered without shepherd. Why is that they have no shepherd? Indicates that they were not under the umbrella of these so-called organizations, brothers and sisters. It is easy to understand. Who are they, the 144,000? They have no shepherd. Now, if you are under that organization, can you say that you have no shepherd? There are many shepherds in that organization. Brothers and sisters, there are many ministers. But the description of the 144,000, they have no shepherd. Is that description is wrong? No. God portrayed the true situation of those who will be among the 144,000 living saints. And all of them who are under the umbrella of that habitations, all of them, when probation will close, when the summer is ended, they will find out that all the shepherds by which they implicitly trusted for their salvation. You see the statement given in 1 Symbolic Code 14:6. They implicitly trusted for their salvation, have deceived all who followed them. But at the time that they will be awakened, it is already too late, my dear brothers and sisters. So to repeat again, there is only one denomination recognized by God as His, and that is the top Carmel. Meaning, God established that denomination above them all, because in that denomination, God bestowed unto them the entire plan of redemption. And I will prove to you that it was predicted beforehand that that denomination, they had no headquarters, as described in the Bible, as described in the Shepherd's Rod publications. We will continue the subject in our next episode. May the good Lord bless you and have a beautiful, wonderful